it's really easy to understand. I don't want bad karma, right? Of course, who wants bad karma? Nobody. But we also, in the higher sense, we don't want good karma. What we want is to work in a way where it's not binding us to the material world.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Usually, when I give class, it goes something like, I get a text from Hadai, hey, you want to give class in 3 days? Like, no, are you crazy? You know, I didn't have time to prepare. But this time, somehow I said yes. So last week, when I got told this, I was in Paris and visiting some family, and I was thinking, what can I share? You know, I always try to share something that is happening in my life and is relevant in my life, so I can share from realization or something that feels alive. You know, otherwise it just feels like it's not really come from the heart. You know what I mean? So when I was in Paris, I wanted to go to the Hare Krishna temple there. And my mom, who has never been in the temple in her life, she told me, oh, I want to go with you. So I was a little bit worried in a way, but it was a great experience, and we went to the Sunday feast. So usually there's a mantra meditation like this, there's a worship ceremony, and then there's a class. And in this class, the topic of karma came up. And after the class, my mom was really interested, or like really surprised, because it was presented in a way where she didn't know, that it could go to that degree or that angle. Because, karma is one of those words that everybody knows, it's kind of the pop culture thing. So even if you don't know nothing about yoga philosophy, Sanskrit, the Bhagavad-Gita, you know about karma. So yeah, that's what I got inspired to this class, because it's a topic that, even though it might seem very simple at first, when we actually understand it in the context of yoga philosophy and what Krishna is telling in the Gita, it holds the key to understanding how can we spiritualize our life, how can our life become yoga. The Bhagavad-Gita is part of a larger book, a larger work called the Mahabharata. Maha means big, great, and Bharat is the name of India, or ancient India. So in this story of ancient India, one of the middle chapters is the Bhagavad-Gita. And the Gita talks about a conversation between two people. There's a huge war that's about to take place. It's kind of like the biggest war in history. And just about as this war is about to start, a conversation ensues in the middle of the battleground between Arjuna, who is this archer guy with a mustache. He is the prince warrior and like the main good guy of one of the two camps. And the other person is Krishna, who you can see here. He's Arjuna's friend. He drives a chariot, but he's also the supreme person. And one of the main tensions, or the main tension of the Bhagavad Gita, is how to act. What is the right course of action at any moment? Arjuna is about to fight this war, and he, even though he's the bravest warrior, he starts doubting himself. Should I actually be fighting this? What good can come from fighting a war and killing a bunch of people? Why not just be a yogi and meditate and go to the forest? So this starts a conversation, right? So, as I was saying, karma, which is another word for work or action, is one of the main topics, how to act. And like I was saying, even though at a first glance it might seem like a simple concept, it's actually not that simple. Krishna, I'm gonna put a verse of the Gita. Krishna explains that. Anybody can read for me? Volunteer. I want to read. Read it.
The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 4, verse 17.
Right, so here Krishna is saying, actually how to act is not that simple. And if we see in our lives, making decisions, how to act is not that simple. But he wants to give us a framework to help us decide how to act. And the beauty of the Gita is that Krishna does not only teach us, or he doesn't want to teach us what to think. He wants to teach us how to think. He wants to give us a framework in which we can use in our life so we can make our own decisions. And he is breaking down action into 3 categories. Action, karma, forbidden action, karma, and inaction, akarma. So the first 2 are pretty straightforward, right? Well, this is what we all know. We have a karmic bank balance, if you want to think of it that way, right? And if you do something good will come. And if you do something bad will come. Pretty simple, right? Everybody understands this?
Yeah.
So what's the complication about this? Well, the next verse after the one we read is one of the hardest verses of the Gita in the sense that it's like a mic drop verse. The Gita has so many verses where you just like what? It really challenges in a way. So can somebody read this for me very slowly because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. Ready? Any volunteers?
One who sees inaction, and action in inaction is intelligent among men. And he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 4, verse 18.
So a little bit of a tongue twister, seems a little bit complicated. I'm gonna read it again just one more time. One who sees inaction, and action in inaction is intelligent among men. And he is in the transcendental position, which implies there's a mature position, although engaged in all sorts of activity. So let's break this down, right? First we have, and to break this down, I'm going to use the example of Arjuna, the warrior, to establish what's going on in the war. Because this is not something that just applies to everything. It really depends on us. So it's a dynamic framework. It really could change what's the best action depending on who you are, what's going on. But in the case of Arjuna, we're just using him as an example. So, what does action in inaction mean for Arjuna? So Arjuna is a warrior prince, right? That means that he's empowered and he has the duty to protect the kingdom. That's his job. So if he decided actually not to fight and just go to a cave and meditate like he wanted to, even though he externally wouldn't be acting by avoiding his dharma or his duty, he would actually be incurring in a karmic action. There is karmic actions associated with him avoiding the war because he's not doing his duty. So in this way, if we act to avoid our good or duty or in a selfish way, even though we might be not acting, we're actually acting. There's action in or inaction. But now let's flip it around. Let's look at it the other way. What does inaction mean for Arjuna? If he chooses to fight, but, and this is the emphasis, right? This is the important part. Not from a place of ego. I am the best warrior. I'm gonna kill everybody, right? Or from a place of vengeance. These people did horrible things. I'm gonna, bench my, whatever. Or from a place of attaining a result, right? I will conquer this and I will rule. But as an instrument in the war, in the plan that's going on, right? In this scenario, even though he would be externally acting, there will be no karma associated. Arjuna actually doesn't understand this. It takes him like 6 chapters to get this concept. So Krishna, it's like, I'm gonna put it real simple here. Arjuna, the results are not in your control. It's that simple. The war has been arranged by me. There is a higher plan, right? So these people are gonna die regardless if you choose to act or not. So your choice is whether you want to be an instrument and cooperate or whether you're not. And as I explained it, you should fight, but think of me and fight, not just fight because you want to fight. And this is a karma. This is inaction, inaction. Before we move on, is this clear? Did I lose anybody here? I know it's a little bit confusing. Can I get like, yes?
Yes.
Cool.
Question though. How does Arjuna determine if he's an instrument if Krishna is the one waging the war?
No, Krishna, or even though he says he's not gonna fight, like at this moment, Arjuna is the one fighting. Krishna is the one arrayed. Because I mean, I will have to give a little bit more context on what's going on in the Mahabharata, but Krishna, like this war is a war that Krishna arranged for something to happen. So there's a higher plan, but Arjuna is the one that's fighting. Krishna is not going to fight, although he fights. But that's another story because Krishna acts in his own way. So if we understand this concept, we understand that ultimately work can be categorized in 2 buckets, right? The material bucket, aka work that entangles us in the world, and the spiritual bucket, work that frees us or liberates us from the world, from the world. And so, of course, it's really easy to understand. I don't want bad karma, right? Of course, who wants bad karma? Nobody. But we also, in the higher sense, we don't want good karma. What we want is to work in a way where it's not binding us to the material world. So, in this way, we can start making sense of this recommendation of Krishna to fight, right? Because Krishna agrees with Arjuna. You should be a yogi, definitely be a yogi always. But this concept that Krishna has of a yogi being a person that goes to a cave and meditate alone, although correct, it is incomplete. And even more, it's the wrong path for most people. Krishna gets a little hard, a little heavy on him. He says, even if you go to the forest and become a yogi, your mind will remain in the battlefield and you will be a pretender. So another realization, another thing we can start getting from this framework is that spirituality is not about externals, it's about internals. So that means that there can be 2 people doing the exact same work externally, right? But internally, they can be doing it from a completely different consciousness and getting a completely different karmic reaction from that work. And for me, this is when spirituality can really become alive in our life. Because sometimes we think that being spiritual means going to church on Sunday, waking up in the morning to do meditation, but this actually blurs the line, or not blurs, but erases the line between this, because actually everything can be spiritual. We don't have to separate it. Everything can be spiritual. What we eat, our work, our relationships, it really gives us a new set of eyes, which we can see the world. So, we read 4:17 and 4:18. I'm gonna read one more verse, 3 verses in a row, where Krishna really drives it home and gives us this last key to understand this framework to how to spiritualize our life. I need one more volunteer. Anybody?
One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up and the fire of perfect knowledge.
So here we have it, right? The element that allows us to spiritualize our actions and burn the reactions to our work is the fire of knowledge. And this is kind of like talking about what I said before. What burns up our karma is not the action itself, but the knowledge fueling the intention behind the action. So let's start by breaking down this concept of fire of knowledge. How does it actually work? First, what does Krishna mean by knowledge? And this can be a whole other class, big topic, but in a very summarized way, Krishna says knowledge is knowledge about the self. Who am I? Knowledge about nature or the universe, and knowledge about the Supreme, and how these three are interacting with each other. So in a very summarized way, is to understand that we're not the body, not the mind, right? We're a spiritual being. And that this world is not a place for us to have fun and just pass the time, but actually is carefully designed to help us evolve spiritually, help us reconnect with our true identity. And that ultimately, every single living entity, us, plants, animals, are eternally connected to the root of all existence. So, let's put this blueprint together, right? We have action, karma, and knowledge. So if you think about it, action by itself, like we talked, is just getting good reactions or bad reactions. So kind of flat. The same with knowledge. Theory by itself has no power to transform. It's just theory. But when we have this theory and we put it to practice and we put action and knowledge together, then the formula to transform becomes alive. And our actions become yoga, become a way to connect. So this is what Krishna is talking about, right? If we work in this consciousness where we make our life an offering and we make our work and our relationships our field of contemplation of this knowledge, then this is what ignites this fire of knowledge. And it starts purifying us. It starts transforming our lives. And it is a very interesting analogy to use fire because, let me ask you a question. What's the difference between butter and ghee?
It's clarified.
How do you clarify the butter?
Cooking it.
With what? The fire, right? So you have butter and you start putting a little fire on it. Eventually the impurities of the butter rise to the top and you can take it out and you get pure ghee. So exactly. So, and by purifying, I don't mean that we transform into something that we're not. Actually, Krishna explains that we are pure by nature. That nothing in this material world can touch us in a way. So what I mean by purifying is cleaning the mirror of the mind. It's almost like a remembrance, not a transformation. And actually this fire is kind of like magic because it works in two ways at once. Like I was saying, it purifies our minds, but it also burns our karma at the same time. Because according to Krishna, right? Karma is not just a system where I do something, like a punishment and reward system or reward system. Karma is actually a tool for us to learn lessons, right? But if we're already operating in a consciousness where it's already aligned with the spiritual consciousness, then there's no lessons to learn, right? There's no karma that we need to learn in the lessons. So actually the karmic balance goes to zero and we get free.
True.
And I want to say one more thing though, before we go to our takeaways and open it up for questions. I want to clarify that working in this consciousness doesn't mean that we cannot aspire for something material, right? That we need to be, like poor or that making money is a bad thing. As a matter of fact, if we actually can achieve things in the world, but with this consciousness of using them as service to others and to the divine, all the better. As long as we own those things, but those things don't owe us, then we're good, right? So, some takeaways, right? My takeaway here for you guys would be, if you can, read the Bhagavad-Gita every day a little bit, because like you saw, I just talked about 3 verses and we were able to mine so much stuff. The Gita is a book that is literally alive. It's not trying to, again, tell us what to think, but how to think. And it gives us a blueprint that we can, or we should, Krishna says, don't believe me. Put this to the test and see if it works in your life. And it works. Well, put it to the test yourself. So, and also, I recommend the Gita, even if you're not spiritual at all, you're the most spiritual, you're in between. The Gita, usually, sometimes in the Western world, spiritual knowledge, it's like either you believe this or bad news for you. The Gita actually meets us where we are. So it can help us inch forward wherever we are. So it's very dynamic and practical. Actually, if you can do this reading among friends, then it's so much more powerful and dynamic. I know Jabari, he just started reading the Gita a little bit ago, and now he's in a reading group with Shyam Sindhu. Do you want to share your experience reading the Gita with others? I don't know. Has it been nice? Like, what do you think?
It's a really beautiful way to be with good company, and also to like be expanding your consciousness and having those moments where like there's a lot of times where I read by myself and it's like, oh, I wish I like look up a word on Google because I don't know it, rather than like you could engage a conversation, which now it's like the whole 30 minutes of time was engaging in this deep conversation just because you didn't understand a word. So it can expand how deep you go into it.
Very true.
Thank you for sharing that. Jabari is the best. So, if you want to try to work in this consciousness, my recommendation would be, let's try to wake up a little bit earlier than usual. Let's read the Gita for 10 minutes and let's chant this mantra for 10 minutes. If we can, silently, we usually use beats, and if you want to learn how to do it, you can talk to Hadai or Tulsi about it, or Shyam Sindhu, or any of us, because this mantra is actually like a reminder. I want to act from a place of being an instrument of love in the world, not from a place of ego. So you just are basically tuning into this consciousness. So if you read the Gita, you tune into this consciousness, and then you go to work and talk to your family, be with your friends. Then try it and let me know if it works. Okay, so that's what I had to share with you. I hope that I said something interesting, inspiring. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, corrections if I said anything wrong. And I love being here at the Bhakti School. This place is great, so keep coming, and Hare Krishna.